Okay. So, hi everybody. I have Anna with me. Anna, I don't know how to describe your part in the music scene, the music community. So, how about we start there and you tell everyone what you have been up to?
For sure. Hi everybody. Thanks for listening and watching this awesome podcast, and thank you for having me, Allyce. So what do I do? Right now I'm kind of doing a lot of different things because what I would normally be doing can't be happening. Um, but I normally work in a venue, actually a pretty legendary, well-known venue in Chicago, a couple technically it's three venues, Metro, Smart Bar, and G-Man Tavern. A lot of people know Metro as the Metro, so that might ring more of a bell for a lot of folks. But Metro and Smart Bar have been around for almost 40 years. Metro is kind of known as being more of like a rock club, and Smart Bar is widely considered like one of the birthplaces of house and techno music. And then we have G-Man Tavern next door, which is kind of like our little like bar slash local and regional band room that we will sometimes throw like pre or after shows for Metro in, or just like local band shows, which is another really cool room. So normally I am in marketing and public relations for all three of the venues. And I also do some freelancing and contractor work on the side, both in marketing and PR and in production. So everything from mostly what I've done is work festivals. I don't know why I said it like that. I should say like mostly what I've done is work festivals because it's literally the best thing ever. But I haven't been able to do that in a while. So that's maybe why I had that tone of voice, because I'm sad about it. But I've done all kinds of stuff in event production, like on the artist relations and admin, merch, transportation, like all kinds of different all kinds of different roles in that side of things. A little bit less in like the actual tech side, but you know, we were talking a little bit before we started recording about how you want to start learning the tech side. I want to learn the tech side too. Like I want to at least have a better understanding of it, but that's for future days. But right now, since the venues are closed, I'm not promoting shows, but I am still trying to stay active. I'm really focusing more on the PR side of things since the closure. I've been really active in the Save Our Stages campaign since I work at independent venues here in Chicago. And we have our own little alliance here in Chicago called the Chicago Independent Venue League, or Civil, who I've been working closely with, both to help lobby our politicians, which has been like a 9-month effort now, and still no relief, and just to gain media coverage around it. And also I've started to work with some of the members of the Civil Board and some other folks who work at Civil member venues to start to devise our own emergency relief fund for the staff who have been laid off and the artists who aren't able to perform right now, and eventually for the venues as well. So that's kind of another one of the projects that I'm working on right now.
Huge.
But yeah, it's kind of a lot. Like I said, I'm doing a lot of different things, but it's like a little bit at a time because things are kind of slow going. So yeah, that's the long answer.
Kind of just float along for a little bit. Like, this sounds like a good thing to do right now.
Pretty much.
What else are you gonna, stuck at home? Why not dabble around in a whole bunch of things,
Yeah, it's kind of like survival mode right now. Like, there's a few months there where I didn't get furloughed right away. Like, we were able to get the first round of PPP funding at Metro Smart Bar, so our staff was able to like keep working for the first couple of months of quarantine and COVID, but there wasn't a lot to do. Like, so we were all working like 20 to like maybe on a good week 30 hours, and just trying to, it was mostly like show cancellations and postponements and like really just depressing shit. And
your hours are cut and you live in Chicago. Like, it's not cheap to live in that city.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, I don't know, I guess I was grateful that at least when quarantine was happening, like we were coming out of the dark, dreary months. I know it was like hard because on the flip side, it's like getting nicer and we wanted to be outside more and everyone's afraid to be outside and whatever. But like at least it was getting like the days were getting longer and it was getting lighter out and like, warmer and stuff. So that definitely helped keep me motivated, I think, even though like all the work changed immediately and drastically, so like right off the bat, and I had less work to do and everything was uncertain and scary. But I would say that like being able to hang on for the first few months and still fortunately like be able to make my regular wage for a little bit before I got furloughed was really helpful and like gave me some momentum going into the summer, which is when I really started working hard on the PR side of stuff and like really getting into advocating for Save Our Stages. So I was definitely super appreciative of that, and I still am. And even though I've been furloughed for a while, I've had some really great opportunities in the summer and fall to like continue learning and growing and stuff. So I'm really happy about that. But obviously, we're all just like antsy. We all want to be back at work. We all want to be back at our shows. So yeah,
we'll get there. I mean, sounds like it'll be sooner than I thought it was going to be, like, I don't know. Seems like hopefully next spring we have some stuff going on. I don't know. It makes sense to me that stuff is shut down in the winter, like cold and flu season, whatever. Like, I get that, but outside stuff is lovely. I love the outside stuff. The Mish has shows where it's like, you got 8 top, 6 top, 4 top, 2 top, and you're all so spread out and you have table service so you're not going anywhere. It's like, I've never been to a show where I'm like in the crowd and like, right here can see the stage, but someone's coming to me at my space that I don't have to hold down, like,
for sure.
I'm going to the bathroom. It's kind
You're
of
so right about that. It is super nice, and I didn't really get to attend too many events like that, but I worked a few, and I also like know about a lot of them, and I think it's gonna change show going. Like, I think that obviously promoters want to sell as like, most of the time promoters are trying to sell as many tickets as they feasibly can and make as much money as they feasibly can. But I think that this like new model of doing a more intimate show with, and obviously some venues have been set up to do this for a long time, like City Winery comes to, where you have an assigned seat and a server coming to you and it's like a listening room format. But I think that that's going to take off more. And I think like for outdoor events especially, I think a lot of people are going to start to prefer that, like you said, you don't have to get there early and like hold down a spot, and it's not like a hassle. You don't have to worry about people blocking your view or like, if you lose your crew, like you always know where you're stationed, and it's kind of like a luxurious format.
Exactly. And you do pay more. You do for sure pay more. But not that much. I mean, it doesn't feel like that much more, I would say the drive-in shows are like pretty pricey you're not going to get close, right? They're parking spots, so you're never going to be close to the stage, but the sound is good if it's like the way Umphrey's did them, it's full sound and it sounds excellent compared to, my town did their own drive-in, and because of the city, it's like a 24-hour noise ordinance, right? Like you can't have it above a certain decibel, which I did not know until this summer. I'm like, where am I living right now? Like, what? But so you had to only play it through your radio, like car stereo. And
that's interesting.
It was defeating because it was like June, so it was at the very beginning, and it was like, yes, we can go see music, and I was like,
but it's your car That's interesting. Some of the ones I worked one of the drive-in series that we had up here in Chicagoland. It was in Chicagoland technically because we didn't do shows in the city. We did them slightly outside of the city. But one of the 2 venues was set up like there was still a full PA system, and it was set up really nicely with like a nice big like it was like a very full scale production, and they were, you know, selling a few hundred cars each, you know, like
Yeah.
it wasn't anything small, so it was nice. But they had a full PA system as well as the frequency, like, you know, that you could tune in on your car. And I thought it was kind of interesting because I don't think anybody used the car radio option, but I thought it was cool they had both. That setup was an actual like drive-in like movie theater,
Yeah.
one of the few remaining ones in Illinois.
Mhm.
And so they already had that feature for the you know, when they would show movies, because I don't think
Yeah.
they have a PA normally.
Right.
But yeah, I was like really grateful that it wasn't just that, because it would have been a completely different experience, especially for the people working it who aren't like actually in a car. Like
Yeah,
I was working and I could actually like hear and see the show, and I was like, this
exactly.
is awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a little underwhelming though. I agree.
it was, you know, I guess it was nice to have anything, right? But it was not, I don't know. It was a little sketchy as far
Yeah.
as the regulations, what the regulations are and what was happening were very different.
Yeah.
They had all the signage.
I had so many experiences like that. I went to a lot of like small outdoor, like really small. So I used this year as, especially like the second half of the summer, as an opportunity to kind of explore um, some of the stuff like outside Chicago that was going on. Because I'm also affiliated with and really tight with the folks who run this festival called Shoe Fest, and it's in like not quite central Illinois, but pretty close to central Illinois. It's still pretty close to Chicago, and it kind of encapsulates like that whole Americana, jam band, folk, bluegrass, funk, like all the kind of regional acts that play in and around Illinois and like the Midwest.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I love a lot of those artists, and like some of them are good friends of mine, and they all play in Chicago, but in Chicago it's like there's always so much competition all of the time. So I'd oftentimes either be at a show, you know, at Metro or Smart Bar because I promoted it and like was just supposed to be there,
Yeah.
or, you know, I'd be like seeing another artist that I'd been waiting to tour through for a while in another venue. And like oftentimes, I won't lie, like some of the more local and regional stuff would like kind of just get swept, you know, to like I'll go to the next one kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorite things about this year is that in the absence of all the like national and international touring artists being able to move around a lot, like it's just been such a focus on the local, which I, you know, anticipated from the beginning of this, and I think it's still going to continue into next year, and I'm honestly thrilled about it.
Okay.
But I got to visit like a bunch of venues that I've been meaning to go to that were, it's all like outdoor patio stuff. So smaller, and personally I love outdoor venues, so I was like really stoked about it. But yeah, I was able to like go and see a lot of new places and artists that I'd been like wanting to see for a long time, or maybe had caught like a song or two at a festival before and hadn't really been able to catch up with, and even like do a small amount of networking, like not really a whole bunch because obviously everyone's social distancing, but like it was really cool to check out some of these new places and these well, not necessarily new artists, but maybe new to me artists. And it's definitely a different experience. Like there was a few times I went and I was just like, man, I wish I could be up in the front dancing like with the crowd right now. And it was so hard to just like stay seated at a table, but at the same time, then you just learn how to, you know, you're dancing at your seat and like everybody else is doing it. You see someone across and you're like, hell yeah. So it's just like, it's all about the adaptation and the fact that we were even able to have live music and like the drive-ins too. Like that was so incredible to be a part of. Umphrey's was actually was so grateful to be able to work with Umphrey's team in Chicago they did a 2-night run here, and then they also did a 2-night run in Georgia, in Atlanta. And I went down there to like train. One of my best friends happens to live down there now, and I was managing all the merch. What was that?
In Georgia?
Yeah, in Atlanta.
Oh.
Yeah, and she's like one of my badass like production mamas who like we've just worked a bunch of shows and festivals together. And so I was managing all the merch for our drive-in series up here, and I went down there to kind of like train her and oversee it because those were like really big shows.
Yeah.
And so I got to go. It was awesome. I got to
I
like
saw you then. You were in the merch tent?
yes.
Then I saw you.
You
and
did?
Yeah, because I was literally, my words were, look at all these beautiful ladies.
Hell yeah, dude. I totally remember that. And I think we were like, we don't need no man, because that was our motto of the weekend, because it was literally all women and it was fucking
I never see all women anywhere at Umphrey's shit.
hell yeah. Yeah, it was
like,
amazing.
look it, there's none of there.
So you weren't there the night that it rained, right?
I was there both nights. And I thought I was gonna die the second night. I literally thought we were gonna die.
Yeah, it was intense. Yeah, it was really intense. Like we were in this tent and like we're watching people still get loaded, well not loaded in, but you know, admitted, and they're driving in, and then all of a sudden they halt it. And you know, the way that for people listening, these shows were held at the Motor Speedway, the Atlanta Motor Speedway, like where they have Imagine Festival, and like it's like a race car track. And so like they were loading cars, or the ingress situation was like one lane was like up maybe 50 feet off the ground because it was part of the speedway, and like it's built at an angle, and then like the other road was just like level. And so they had cars coming in on both ways, and one of the promoters told me later he had to like run up to the one that was like 50 feet up and like help direct cars because they were just trying to get them off the high ground and like away from the venue so that they could get everyone like in one safe space and like let the storm pass. And he was like telling me that he could feel there was like tornadoes right above the speedway like forming. Fortunately they didn't form a few miles away and then run through. They formed.
I could see them from the field because we
That's
were
wild.
Yeah, no, I could see. I was like, dude, they're right. I was wigging out. It was like,
I was trying not to pay too much attention to the sky because like I'm not afraid of a lot of things, but I have like a childhood like negative experience with a tornado.
We're from the Midwest, dude.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and like nothing actually happened. It just touched down in like the next town over, and I couldn't get a hold of my mom for a few hours, and I was really scared, and then everything was fine. But because of that, I like, of all the natural disasters out there, like tornadoes just like, I don't know, they make me uncomfortable.
Seriously. It's bad. Summer camp, I'm always like real sketched out, you know, there's always at least 1 to 2 real bad storms usually. I don't know. The one
Dude,
where the
summer camp's intense.
struck.
Yeah, I remember that. Summer camp is intense because it's literally like this like if I always camp in the forest, so it always gives you the illusion of safety, but realistically that's a small forest in a giant field.
Yeah.
You know, and like the storms there get really bad. I don't know if you remember, there was one on like a Sunday morning. I think it was in 2016 or 2017, and it was just like so bad. Like I thought our entire campsite, I mean, there's been a ton of them over the past several years that were like, oh my gosh, things are gonna just like float away in the like stream of water rushing through this campsite right now. But the winds were so bad at this particular one that I really thought a tornado might come through, and then fortunately it didn't. It was like 40 minutes of like really terrifying storming and lightning and stuff, and then it was just gone, and it was beautiful after that. So that's summer camp.
Weird. I'm like, we must be we're either in a bubble where like the yuckiness just like goes around us, or we are creating the vibes to keep ourselves safe. Like, no,
pretty much.
Go away, storm, you go away. It's so scary.
It's like what you said about creating the vibes to like transcend the whole thing. Like that's literally what was going on in this storm. I think it was in 2017. This was the first year, and maybe the only year actually, that I camped in like the primitive RV, because I like was able to I wasn't working, but I was like with someone who was working, so we were able to bring my car in for the first time, and I was like, yes, I don't have to carry all my shit in. And so I was in the field for the first time, and that's when this storm hit. And I remember we just like took our easy up down to like the lowest level, and we're all like hunched under it, and I'm like mixing everyone Bloody Marys, and I'm like, we're gonna get through this. Sure enough, we did. But what else are you gonna do? It's like, you can't really be. I mean, there's lightning. You probably shouldn't be walking around.
Right.
All the people were doing it, but
Yeah, no.
God, I miss festivals.
I feel like it doesn't matter where you're at that point in summer camp. Like you said, it's just like a big field. Like it's just a field forever in every direction. It feels like,
Yeah.
I think our saving grace is probably the river. If I had to guess, maybe the river being so close helps a little bit, but in Georgia, I was literally like, Tara rented a minivan and we had all the seats folded up so we could hang out in the back and watch the show. But then we're waiting for this tornado and they're like, stay in your car. Shit. And I'm laying down on the ground in this minivan, just like, I don't know what to do to stay safe right now. There's nothing you can do. You're stuck in a car. Like, where do you go? What do you do? So I was just like, if anything comes through the window, at least I'm laying down. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I was just trying to pretend like I was in a more protective structure than a tent with walls. Like literally a canvas tent with like metal poles. I was just like, okay, well, maybe if I don't look around outside, it's not like it's happening. It's like it's not really happening. And then at one point, fortunately, like the staff parking lot was just outside it was probably not more than like 150 yards from where the merch tent was. So like 2 of our staff ran and like got their cars and brought them to like right in front of the tent. And then eventually we got in them and we were just like, well, stuff gets wet. There's not really much we can do about it at this point. And we had the radio on and like we're listening to, those really scary announcements. The promoters did such a good job though.
They really did.
They did everything right. They got everyone down off the high ground and like onto the lowest ground, and they did a really good job making sure people stayed in their cars. However, there were a few people who kept coming up to the merch tent to like pick up their orders in the middle of like the worst part of the storm. And we're like, we're closed. Go back to your car. What are you doing?
It'll be here or it will be gone in the tornado. But either
I was just like, what? But yeah, so they did a really, really excellent job though. And there was still a full show afterwards. Yeah. Nobody thought that was going to happen. Even the band didn't think that was going to happen.
No. And now it'd be so sad because it was the last shows of the year. Like,
I know.
Of the year, and it was going to get freaking tornadoed out, and somehow the weather gods smiled upon us after making us think we were gonna die for a while.
Yeah, for like 90 minutes of pure torture, and then we were like for sure that we were gonna get one set, and then they somehow were able to like extend curfew. I'm not really sure what they did there. They pulled some strings and they were able to get, I think in that area it's easier to do because it's a lot more rural.
Yeah.
But it was a loud show, dude.
Yeah, it was.
I was impressed.
It was,
the quality of production was great.
It was really fantastic, and it was dumping, and like they just kept playing those electric instruments in the
they're like, you know what, yeah, they had a very watchful eye on everything. They even at one point they had their entire crew like on the stage just holding gear down and like making sure everything was staying protected and staying safe. Even like their merch manager, I remember like we were getting close to the end of show, and he was like, I might be late to count out because I'm literally on the stage holding stuff down. And I'm like, don't worry, I got you. Like, dude, that's awesome. Do what you got to do. Like, you guys need to, hold it down, literally. So, but yeah, it was a really fantastic experience, both in Chicago and Atlanta. And like, the Umphrey's team is so incredible to work with. And just being able to, so prior to working at Metro Smart Bar, I worked for a promoter called Silver Rapper here in Chicago, and we used to do, some of the partners or ex-partners of that company still do work on these shows, but we used to do North Coast here in Chicago and Sewanee Halloween in Florida, which is kind of where those festivals are kind of where I cut my teeth on festival work. And like some of the best experiences I've had, especially at Halloween. That's like my home and heart. Like summer camp's like my first festival, but Halloween's like the one that really changed my life. I mean, summer camp changed my life for sure too, but Halloween really, really changed my life. So
I need to get there.
Yes, I know. I can't wait for it to come back. I have hope. I mean, it's so hard to speak on what's going to happen next year,
Yeah.
especially with the mid-sized festivals, but I have hope for the ones that are later in the year that maybe they'll
They
figure
have
some kind of
they have
smaller
more
scale out.
space than anyone, right? Isn't it really
What's
just
that?
don't they have a ton of space though?
Um, yeah, yes. Yeah, I mean, if they can figure out how to scale it,
They
it definitely
can't
won't
just
be the
have
same. Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. And it's in Florida too, so there's like that advantage as well
Yeah,
because
definitely.
Florida does what Florida wants.
Yeah.
Um,
I was gonna say
but
they don't really give a fuck, do they?
yeah. But I will say that, the promoters that, who I've worked with who are behind it are really interested in keeping things safe. So,
Oh, totally.
I can't really speak on what will happen there, but I would hope that, maybe there's hope that we can figure out how to scale some of these like mid-sized festivals, even like summer camp, so that they don't have to take another year off or like do some kind of hybrid format. I'm really, it's definitely time to get creative right now because a lot of these festivals, like 1 year off is difficult. 2 years off for some of them, like I can't speak as to whom, but for some of them is going to be a death sentence. Like it's not, it's unfortunate. And same thing with venues. I mean, this is why we've been working so hard with the Save Our Stages campaign to like get people to understand and get our politicians to understand, the clock is running out and people don't just have like a ton of savings sitting around to keep paying bills that haven't stopped when there's no revenue. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. I think that again, like I said, I think it's going to be a really big focus on like the smaller artists, regional touring bands, and like smaller capacity shows. And drive-ins, I think, are still going to be huge next year.
Yeah,
Personally,
definitely. I'm in, like that.
me too.
I had a lot of fun. Like you have the comfort of your own space. Of course, it's not the same as raging the rail. Like I'll be the first one to admit I want to be up close seeing the shit, but
Mhm.
I'll take a car full of my best friends.
It's kind of cool. It's like in some ways, it's kind of like I said, I did get to attend one drive-in for fun, but I didn't really like come super prepared, so I didn't get like the full experience. Like I didn't get like bring like the picnic table, or not the picnic table, but like the 6-foot table and like drinks and snacks and all of that, like like half festy mold almost. I didn't get to do that, but I still did get to go and like experience it, and it was awesome. But the ones that I worked from, like just walking around here and there, I saw a really cool like mixture of like show culture and festival culture, because literally you have your car there where most camping festivals you're camping by your car.
Yeah.
And like people just brought like a huge spread. The ones that we did not have food or beverage vendors, so it was like
Right. So
BYOB and
yeah.
yeah, bring your own food. I know some didn't do it that way, but I thought it was really cool that people could just bring whatever they wanted, and like people brought like their like totem poles and like their huge flags and like light up stuff and
Yeah.
like flow toys and like just all kinds of decorations, and really like went all out, and it kind of felt like being at a festival
Yeah.
at a lot of these.
Yeah,
Really,
absolutely.
really cool.
Yeah.
So personally, I'm a fan.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and it's only a part of me that misses being up front and close. The other part of me is like, there's not enough room here.
Yeah.
Back up. So like,
Right.
I really dig it either way. I dig it either way. I like new experiences. I'm just trying to find the silver linings here, and this is a
Same
pretty
here.
solid one. Like, I don't know, Brian. So what's your affiliation then with Zoo Funk U? Or are you just homie to the Shoe Fest?
Actually, I've known Zoo Funk U for a few years now. They're just like one of my favorite local Chicagoland bands,
Mhm.
who I think are just like superb musicians and superb human beings.
Nice.
Like Brian, our mutual friend who connected us, he and I started getting closer this year, just like since COVID, and I'm trying to remember exactly what brought us together. I think it's just like not going out and like just spending more time like finding new friends on social media. I'm pretty sure that's what did it. And like we just started talking and got to know each other better. And he's now my guitar teacher. because I decided to start learning guitar I decided to start learning guitar in February before COVID, and then COVID hit, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm actually going to do this. So I've been kind of just dabbling with it on my own all summer, and then like spring and summer going into fall. And then like a few weeks ago, I was like, because he's been offering for a while, because he is the guitar instructor as well on the side. And he's like a really cool person who knows so many different instruments, and those people, it's like I'm fascinated by people who know tons of different instruments and tons of different languages as well, because it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to learn like more than one other language, and like learn. I grew up playing piano, but I haven't really like played a ton in my adult life, so I've been starting to do that again, and I was like, I want to learn another instrument as well. So so I was like really impressed by his abilities, and he's just a cool guy too. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna be vulnerable with you. Like, let's do a Zoom guitar lesson, and I'm gonna just try to not be shy here. And he's just such a great instructor and really makes it accessible and fun. And like, if I like to learn about like the theory and like, I don't know, I wanted to dive into some more complicated theory stuff like right off the bat. Maybe he wouldn't say it's complicated, but to me it seems complicated. And he was like so down to just take it in whatever direction I wanted to go, like what my brain is going to learn best, however my brain's going to learn best. So I thought that was really cool, because I like teachers that are like, you know, they know how to like read the room, like they can read the student. Like, okay, maybe it's not always going to be the same structure of lessons for every student, like from start to finish. It's going to be like whatever that student really needs to grow, and that's how it's been with him. So Brian's awesome, and Zoo Funk U is a really great band. They played summer camp last year, I believe. They like they won the one of the like road to summer camp battle of the bands, which was really cool.
I'm pretty sure I caught him. I don't want to say 100%, but I think I caught him last year. I would imagine. I'm pretty sure.
They're really good. I feel like whenever, you know, I don't remember if they had like in-person gigs this year. I think that they've more so been like focused on recording and like you know, writing new music and stuff, because they released an album last year and toured it last year. So I think that actually last year at this time they did. So they were kind of like in the beginning of that like album release campaign when COVID hit, which is unfortunate. But I think that when things start to like open back up more, they're gonna have a really good year ahead of them. So keep an eye out.
Oh, for sure. Well, I was just thinking, like, I have some of my best friends are in a band in Chicago, in the Chicago area, called Funkinetic. And so I was like, cool. Ooh, they might be fun together.
Yeah.
You got an instant pairing right there.
Absolutely.
But, I need to see them. I love festivals because I do get to like see bits of bands I would never see, and then kind of, you know, catch up with them later when they tour in my area or whatever, which is like Aqueous is right up there now, you know, top 5, well, top 2 really, like.
So is it Umphrey and then Aqueous for you?
Yeah, essentially. I have a hard time with that because I love Mo and I love Keller, but like it's just different love, you know what I mean? Like, I think Mo and Keller are like my warm and fuzzies, and then Umphrey and Aqueous are like my rage my face off kind of thing.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I'm so glad that Umphrey was one of the bands I got to work with on, because we had a bunch of different artists throughout, like, I think it was like 8 weeks or so from the first shows that we did were in July. It was actually super cool. I got a call from my old boss from Silver Rapper, who now works, his new company is called Collective Presents, and they were like putting together their first drive-in shows, and he called me and he was like, hey, so, you know, I know you're for load right now, and like thought maybe you'd want this gig. It's nothing super special. It's just running the merch booth, you know, but like, I'd really love to have you involved. And I thought maybe you would want the work. And I was like, okay, like, I'm really interested, but this was in early July. I was like, the only thing that's holding me back from saying yes, like immediately, is that it's on my birthday weekend. And like, I didn't have plans for my birthday, but I thought maybe like me and my roommate would go to the beach or something, like go to the Indiana Dunes and just like have a day ourselves, you know? But, I was like still hardcore quarantining, like wasn't doing anything. And I was like, I got off the phone with him. I was like, I'll give you an answer in 24 hours. And like an hour and a half later, I was like, I'm not going to do anything. Like I could be at a show. I could be working a show, like the first show in 4 months. So I called him back and I was like, yeah, I want this gig. And then it turned into they took a couple months off to like refine and like find another venue to simultaneously throw shows at and like book more artists and stuff. And then came back with like, a whole bunch more shows. I think we did like 15 or 20 more shows total in Chicago, not counting Atlanta. And then we sold merch for maybe 2/3 of them or like maybe half of them. So I got to work a ton of shows and with a ton of different artists, and it was just really great. But I'm really happy that Umphrey's was one of them, because like I've seen Umphrey's a bunch of times, and I've, like I told you before, I've promoted their shows, and I've, just kind of been there, like popped in and when it was a show that I promoted, but like maybe wouldn't have necessarily bought tickets to go to.
Yeah.
But this was the first time I felt like, and maybe it's because I hadn't seen live music in that scale for so long, but this is the first time I really felt like, oh my God, these guys crush. Like I knew they were a great band and great musicians, but I just grew a whole new appreciation for them this time around.
Yeah.
Especially at the show with the tornadoes.
I mean, shit, it's just, and that is not the first time they've had to deal with inclement weather, right? But it just felt like they took it to such a different level once it did all pass. Like, that was an epic show for sure. That was an epic weekend anyway, all of it. But that's so cool that you got to work with them. That's like goals for me.
It's so cool that you were there, and I remember you saying that. That was like so cool when you shouted that into the tent, because we were all just so busy and we were killing it, and we were really happy because it took a few shows to get the system down. Like I along with another badass female, Ashley Brown, she was the production manager for all of the drive-in shows in Chicago, and she and I kind of like worked together to help build the new merch system, like contactless, and make it like as efficient as possible. And it was definitely a process. Like I didn't really have a lot of experience with online stores, like the administrative side, because we used Shopify and like we had to like figure out how to do like the pickup option without like, I don't know, with mitigating lines and social distance, like enforcing social distancing and all that. And it was a really awesome effort, but it definitely took some time to figure out. And yeah, she was super great. That was another team that was like mostly women, which was really cool. Like our artist relations and hospitality and like PA, all women. And like it was just really cool because they were people that I'd known from the Chicago festival scene but hadn't worked with in a while. And I like walked in and I just like looked around and it was like pretty much all females, and I was like, this is super cool. And like all people that I knew I was gonna like already loved or like knew I was gonna love. And so that was really, really awesome.
That's super rad. Oh man, especially that team. They legit, it has been like all men for a long time, like just like, I don't know, that's how the whole industry has been. But it seems like we're coming out of the woodwork like, hey, we're here and we're gonna do this shit too. And it's awesome that you came up with that, like helped come up with that system, because in Chicago, I guess, right, they were doing the golf carts, like trying to drop off merch. That was a little harder, I feel like. Maybe it wasn't, but it felt like it was
a nightmare. So that was the first time so like we had the shows in July, I mentioned, and like we took the feedback from like the way we ran it in July, which was without the golf carts, and like we were like, okay, we need to put together a better system. And I wasn't really a part of that yet. I got brought on to like come in and manage those Umphrey shows over Labor Day weekend were the first two big ones that we had done under COVID. The other ones were much smaller in comparison, and it was at a new venue as well. So they were like, let's try this. It was like partially the promoter and production company and partially the agents or management who wanted to try this like new system with the delivery. And it's just like this venue wasn't built out properly for it, but we didn't really like realize it till we tried it. It was just kind of one of those trial and error things. Like we just had to try it to figure it out. So like between night 1 and night 2, we completely scrapped that model and like switched to a pickup model. And it was like so like fly by the seat of your pants, because it was like still a low budget. Like those were the first big shows and like the first real opportunity to make like good money off the shows. And so we were still like operating with really, really minimal gear, and like we didn't even have like a rental tent. Like we had to like have one of my merch staff, who's a badass, bring his like pop-up tent. Yeah. And like we just like, you know, we're like scrounging for like the stuff we needed to build it and just making it happen. And it was a whole operation. Like it was a huge operation. But yeah, night 1 just like it just didn't work out. Like it was just too slow. Also, we got so many orders. It was ridiculous. Like the amount of merch, even at Metro, like we've been doing like this big merch campaign for Metro and Smart Bar. And because it's basically our only source of revenue right now. And people have been so generous. Like the merch sales have been out of this world. And that's how it was with pretty much all of the shows I ran. Like some of the artist camps who I corresponded with were like worried that they weren't going to sell as much merch because people just like aren't making as much money. A lot of people aren't unemployed, whatever. And it was like totally the opposite. Like I would say every show was on par with regular merch sales, if not higher, which is so cool. Like really, really awesome that people are showing their support. But yeah, that first night was just, we were slammed, and it just there weren't like proper numbers on each of the car spaces. So we were doing off license plate, and then people would have their trunks open, or like, it was just like, you were in the crowd, so you saw how it worked on the back end.
We bought merch. So we were like,
yeah. Our drivers were literally like so overwhelmed. They're like, every time I try to drive down a road to like look for the right car, somebody's flagging me down, asking me if I have their order. And it's just like, I don't have time for this. Like, so yeah, but we did a really good job, like between night 1 and night 2, like figuring out a better system. And then
night 2 was way smoother. I could just, you know what I mean? It went really well. And then by Georgia, it was great. Like no problems. It felt like. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why like Georgia felt so good, was because between like the Chicago Umphrey shows and the Georgia Umphrey shows, I had a few other we actually had a 5-night run at a different venue in Chicagoland where we had 2 nights of Billy Strings, 1 night of Jeff Tweedy Band, and 2 nights of Trampled by Turtles, who are like my favorites. And that was like one of the best, like for me personally, like I love all kinds of music. But like that was like just an incredible weekend for me. But anyway, yeah, like that was the second run of shows, and I had like a week in between to kind of like refine, and those shows went super, super well. And then like I think we had a couple more before I went down to Georgia, and by then it was like everything was really nailed down and felt good. And it was like a wonderful experience after having so much of this year off of work. I mean, I wouldn't say off of work, but just the work I was doing has changed. And just trying to find ways to stay like creative and stay motivated and like keep learning and really keep feeling like I'm not like staying stagnant, like I'm moving and I'm growing. And that was such an awesome, challenging experience, because like we had to keep it safe, you know, like there's definitely a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong with like people trying to crowd around a merch table, or like touch things, or talk too closely to us, or pull their masks down to try to make a transaction, or get like stand in a line and like not socially distance or whatever. And yeah, so it was really, really awesome to like get to Georgia, and like I didn't think I'd be able to travel for work. I like drove down myself, like 13-hour drive. It was awesome just being on the road alone, like and then stay with one of my best friends and like teach her how to take over down there. And like it was just such a like wonderful and humbling experience. And then everything just went super well. Even with the tornadoes, we still crushed it. So that was like an awesome feeling this year.
Incredible. It was really great. I was blown away. Obviously, I hollered at you all.
Yeah. Ladies.
So impressed. Well, and I was there picking up with my girlfriend Kat. So we're always like all girl power, you know. So when we walked up, we were just so stoked.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that.
I'm all about it. Like you know, I know that you like to talk about and focus on, you know, being a woman in the industry and like, you know, the different things that we go through. And you know, like hardships that we have compared to our male counterparts. And, you know, I was kind of reflecting on that before coming on to talk with you. And I was thinking about, you know, I've been really fortunate, I think, to have so many positive experiences, like far more positive than negative in that regard. I also think that it's like indicative of a changing of the times, you know, especially like within the music industry. I'm seeing so many more females in positions of power, both like on the independent side and like the more corporate side.
Sure.
I remember when I was in Denver in February, I went to see Railroad Earth at what is it? The
Mission.
Mission? Yeah. Okay. I'm like, wait, don't say this wrong when you're being recorded. Yeah, the Mission
It's
Ballroom.
brand new. I would cut you some slack. It's brand
Thank
new.
you. Yeah. And I went there and I was just like, holy shit, this venue is so cool. Like, it's just like state of the art. I was texting with one of my mentors who I worked with at Silver Rapper, who went to work for AEG, and he was telling me like, you know, that a woman designed that venue, and that like he was just telling me all the like amazing specs about it, like how the stage can like go like retract, yeah, so they can scale the room, which is so ingenious and like really opens up so many possibilities for that room.
Yeah.
And like that's the future for sure.
Yeah.
And it was like telling me something about like how that the disco ball took like 4 different forklifts to like bring in like 4 different like to assemble it. It took like a long ass time because it's so big, and I'm standing under it like just marveling at it. I love venues so much. But yeah, and I just remember being like, this is so cool that like, you know, a woman like was basically the project manager of this, building this venue. And you know, I keep seeing more and more women coming up in agent roles and manager roles. And I love when I'm on a thread with like mostly women, you know, like marketing a show or whatever it is that I'm working on, if it's like an artist relations advance or something like that. And always just warms my heart. And I really love working with, you know, like we obviously need balance, you know, but I love working with women. I just think that we communicate so well with each other. And even, you know, sometimes like I feel like we are taught that you have to act a little tough, like act a little harder than we might normally, like in normal day-to-day life, like in person maybe, especially like emailing. But I feel like I love that when I like get on a thread and it's like maybe like a woman and like, you know, also men are on the thread, and like she's just like standing her ground, and she's like able to talk at these men to get shit done because she knows she has to in some cases, or else she won't be taken seriously or like won't be made a priority or whatever. And I've had to like kind of learn how to be that way as well. And it's a real thing, you know, like it's a real way that men behave that like, you know, women have had to kind of like you know, pick up on a little bit to like really play the game. And I love when I get on a thread with like a boss ass bitch who's just like, I'm here, I've got really concise answers, and I'm gonna get shit done because we've got a job to do and I ain't got time for anything for like, I don't have time to like sit around and like say please and wait for you to do stuff, like do something that's gonna take a few minutes, you know, like I really, really love that. But yeah, I personally feel like I was really lucky to get brought onto a team who was very like pro female, really small team. Like I started working for Silver Rapper in 2016 technically as an intern, and then when I finished school in 2018 was brought on full time. And like in between like those 2 years, I was taken under the wing of a really awesome female named Tara, and she like was just like, I believe in you and I'm going to teach you everything I know, and you can do everything that I do. And I was just like in awe of her because she was at age, I think 24 already, like running. She's like the marketing director for Halloween, and which was in its infancy, but like grew super quickly. And also like running marketing for all kinds of shows all over the city. We were just a promoter that didn't own venues. So like we would promote in venues all over Chicago, and she was like running marketing for all these different shows. She was doing marketing and social media stuff for North Coast, which is another like mid-sized festival here in Chicago, for those who aren't familiar with it. and like simultaneously doing production gigs, like all kinds of stuff from like AR to like stage management in some cases, to like transportation, and just like all kinds of stuff. And she literally was just like, you can do this, so like learn with me and I'll teach you. And it was such an incredible experience. And we had almost four really beautiful years together. I guess it was more like, yeah, it was about four. And the rest of the team was small, you know, so it was mostly men otherwise, but everybody that I worked with there was just like very aware that like Tara was like the boss, you know, like she's like the boss, like we wouldn't be the same company without her. And so I always felt like, you know, she was so well respected and I was so well respected as well. Like there's just like this sense of like female energy, you know, really running through the company. Yeah. Even though like one of the partners were females, it was, you know, all three were men, but I don't know, I just always felt like a team that was really harnessing like the female energy. And
right.
So
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. So nice when you find something like that, you know, because I don't think, I mean, most women, maybe not most, but I feel like a lot of women don't have like solidarity when it comes to like female, like friendships, relationships. I don't know. People are always surprised when I have a crew of like 10 girlfriends like going to shows together and stuff, and it's like, this is what it's about, you know, where we all enjoy the same shit. We don't have to be, I don't know, in my mid-20s, right, I'm 32 now, but in my mid-20s it felt like it was always like kind of competitive, or you know what I mean, like the catty almost atmosphere of like I don't want your boyfriend, I just want us to be friends, you know what I mean? So we've been,
feel that,
you know, congregating since we've like, when we find each other, like, oh, a chick who's here because she just really cares about music, you're one of us, you know what I mean? Gather them up. But I don't know that everyone gets that. I hope everyone gets that experience, you know. It's so empowering when you do have a group of women who can communicate well and like talk about real shit and like you said, get shit done, you know. It's just, it's a different level, you know.
I agree.
And I think there is like a shift happening. I think you're right on that. Like, just to bring the balance back, you know what I mean? I think back, right? It was very female centered societies. And then all of a sudden, you know, that crumpled away. And now we've got this like very male dominated. And it's like, we need the balance of both, I think. And it seems like we're getting there. Hopefully eventually.
I feel it. I think that, you know, of all the times to be a woman in like modern history, like you know, and obviously there's a lot of fucked up shit happening with like the fight for reproductive rights and everything, but I think that we have more of a voice now than we've ever had. I think that we are closer to equality, even though we still aren't equal, but I think that we're closer to equality than we've been. And I think that we have more access to education and more like similar opportunities or the same opportunities as men than we've had. And so much of that comes from women mentoring other women, you know? And so I'm so grateful to have been, you know, like a protege of that exact dynamic. And I will always try to continue that, whether it's like, you know, a smaller project or like literally working with somebody for a year or more to like help them break into, you know, a field like I was helped, you know. And
yeah, which is so meaningful because the world just needs so many more people like that. I feel like, you know, most people are like, well, yeah, I'll teach you, but it's gonna cost you, you know, like I'm, you know, my time is money. And I get that, like everyone is super valuable and their time is super valuable. Absolutely. But I also think that in that kind of situation, both parties gain from the experience, you know what I mean? Because it's one thing to learn something and to have knowledge, but then once you teach it, it like extends your knowledge of the thing that you're teaching. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because you get questions that you didn't really think about, or you didn't realize like you needed to think about how to explain it to someone who doesn't understand any of it. You know what I mean? You just get like this broader perspective, even as the giver of knowledge or whatever, you know?
Totally.
So that's awesome that you want to keep that up, because we need more of that.
Gotta pay it forward, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm such a big believer in that anyway, but especially in this arena, because I constantly think about how I don't know, I focus on gratitude anyway, because that's just kind of who I am, but I really do feel so enormously fortunate to even be working in music, because I was definitely like, I think I like to refer to myself as a little bit of a late bloomer. Like in my late teens, early 20s, I was kind of like trying to go for a totally different career and just spending so much time traveling for shows and festivals, while I was in community college for a while, like trying to pursue a science degree. And like I was doing good in the classes and everything, but I just like I kept changing my mind on like what I wanted to do. And in the meanwhile was going to so many shows and like starting to go to festivals and traveling and just doing all these things all the time. And I felt like I was moving a million miles a minute. And I was kind of insecure, because I was like, why are things not going the way I want them to? And I realized it was because I wasn't really like disciplined enough, I think, to go for that avenue. Like for a minute there, I was considering going pre-med. Like when I was like 18, I wanted to be a doctor. And I think it's incredible. Like I'm fascinated by science. I always have been. And I always thought it would be great to work in healthcare. But because I wanted to help people. I've always wanted to help people, which goes back to this, whole mentoring situation. But I was just at a certain point, I felt like I was kind of wasting time and like not really like moving in the direction that I wanted to be moving in. And it was my mom who actually, another female, who actually like inspired me to go ahead and pivot and go after music. And she was like, this is what you love to do. You're spending so much time doing this. Like, why don't you just go ahead and like try to work in music? Like she didn't say try, she said go work in music and follow your bliss, is what she said. And so kind of one thing led to another. One of the first people I ever spoke to about like, well shit, how do I do this, how do I make that happen, like, because now I'm intrigued. I never would have even considered that as a possibility, but I was already so into the scene here in Chicago and like even nationwide, going to festivals all over different areas, that I was like, you know what, maybe there is a future here for me. I'd started being a street teamer, which, I told you earlier, you and I have a lot in common, because we both started with like the desire to just go to shows for free. And then it turned into a career. But one of the first people I spoke to was my friend Alex Grummer, and she was the GM at Canopy Club in Champaign-Urbana for a number of years. And she was working there at the time, and I was always really impressed by her and was like, I wish I could be doing some cool shit like that. So I hit her up and was like, hey, like what advice would you give to somebody starting off in like or wanting to start off in the music industry? And we didn't really know each other that well at the time. Like we met at a festival camp together and like hung out a few times, like in groups of friends, but we hadn't like really formed like our one-on-one friendship yet. And I tell her all the time, because now we've, over the past several years, we've become really good friends, but I tell her all the time how much that one conversation really inspired me. It's like the first time I ever like asked somebody who I considered to be, like a professional, to take some time and talk to me and give me some advice. And it was like nerve-wracking. So I wasn't sure if I could do it at the time. I had like way lower confidence back then. And it's like the result of all these amazing women in my life and in my career that I am so much more of a confident person and professional now, who like will take risks and learn new things and put myself out there. Like back then I think I knew I could do it, but I didn't really believe it yet. And it was conversations like that, and then meeting Tara and having her be like, you're smart, you're capable, like if you want to do this, like I will teach you. So
that's so cool.
It's really incredible. It's what needs to happen. So, if I ever have the opportunity to help someone else along in that way, even if it's just like a fragment of the experiences that I've had, or like a conversation or a connection, you know, like I'm so about connecting people. Like I'm so about when someone's like, I need someone for this gig, or I need someone who's really skilled in this particular field, you know, and I'm so about being like, this person, like, you should know this person, you know.
Yes, that's how I am. People always, even at shows, like we'll go to Red Rocks and, you know, you have to have your space, you know, kind of held down a little bit, you know, bring some blankets or whatever. And then I start talking to all my neighbors, you know, and everyone's like, are you the ambassador? Like, yeah, I'll be the ambassador. You guys should know each other. I don't know. But it's so
It's such a good
to see that connection, you know?
Yeah. And it's a really good feeling when people hit it off and then later on they're like, this like person you introduced me to like changed my life, or like got me a gig that led into like a tour, or like led into like a seasonal, or maybe even like longer lasting than that, like, you know, position somewhere.
Yeah.
I've had multiple people tell me that, you know, and or like working on one show led to a series of other gigs that, you know, came from knowing somebody that they worked with at that first show, you know. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's, that feeling is so, I think it's just, it's so hard to describe. It's just such a, it's like that feeling of being of service,
Yeah.
but it's also like it gives back, like
Yeah.
it's a fulfilling feeling, you
Well, it
know?
feels almost meant to be, you know, to a certain extent. Like, you know,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
a combination of synchronicity and the butterfly effect, you know, like this one conversation you had, or this one person that you met one time, you know. Like I said, I have no idea how I know Brian. Yet here
But
we
now you know
are.
me and I know you. Who knows what's gonna come of that?
Yeah, and
It's
it's
probably
very
oh,
clear
shit.
that we were supposed to know each other.
Hell yeah.
It's
I
incredible.
know.
Like, oh wow, we've actually been through the same experiences. You know, like the
Yeah.
summer camp storms. We've been to the same. You know what I mean? It's so funny.
We've already crossed paths once that we know of in real life.
Exactly. And who knew? That's so funny. That kills me a little bit. Like, I'm gonna have to tell my cat, like, hey, the girl I interviewed was one of those chicks. She's gonna die.
Dude, I know. And it's funny because I'm going to tell my girlfriend Zizi, who is my co-manager that night, and she took over the Atlanta shows. I'm totally going to be like, so do you remember that podcast I told you about? Well, the host was like the one who was like, look at all these sexy females, or whatever you said. And she's going to be like, I remember her, because that literally made our night. We, that night, we had actually taken like, I had taken like an Instagram story of all of us just like madly packing orders and just keep like holding it down.
Yeah.
And my caption was like, we don't need no man, as I said before, because we literally didn't. And it just felt good to like know that and
Yeah,
recognize
exactly.
that. It is normally a male driven industry for sure.
Exactly.
So when you said that, we were like, woo!
I love that. Makes it even more powerful to me that you guys also were acknowledging it behind the scenes, and then you must have just been radiating it, because I was just like,
yeah. We had such a good time. We had such a good time. And those were the only shows I worked down there, but I believe that for the majority, if not the remainder of the shows, they were mostly female crews as well, at least in the merch shops. So
nice.
and the woman who was like running, she was doing like AR Hospital, but also kind of just a bit of like a project manager, like on-site project manager. And she's also somebody who I'd crossed paths with through working festivals. She was TMing at the time, and she's also a badass and was like running shit for all of those shows too. So definitely really cool to see young women, especially because she was, I mean, I'm 27, so she's definitely, you know, around 30, probably not too much older than 30 if she is older than 30. And it's just cool to see like young women in positions of power and, you know, like just being respected and relied upon in that capacity. So
And like flowing, it seemed like there was a genuine like flow back there, at least when I was over there. I was like, it just looks like everything's moving and grooving, you know. And
yeah,
clearly chaos. There's clearly a lot of orders happening, you know, but like somehow it just looks so smooth. I was really impressed. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's cool. It kind of reminded me of my days working in a restaurant, some of those gigs, because like merch is not normally a field, I guess, that I work in too much. Like, I mean, I've done a little bit of coordination, but like I've never just been like a merch manager, and I never really realized. I think I underestimated how important merch is. Like, I know it's a huge revenue stream. I've always known that, but I never realized like all of the challenges that go along with it. And especially during COVID, you know, like everything, I think one of the hardest parts was just like convincing management and agents that, you know, we had to do things under this new format because number one, it cost more money, like the staffing cost more. And that was probably the biggest increase was the staffing. And then there was like, you know, some added fees that we had to use or that we had to apply because we were using an online store and, you know, some other limitations, but we were still able to make them a ton of money that they wouldn't have made otherwise. So
I bought more merch this year than I ever buy.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, if I'm not paying to go to shows, then I have extra. I mean, I'm not working because it's COVID, right? Like I nanny now, so it's only 2 days a week, so I wouldn't call in work at all. It's for my friend. I love her children very much, you know, it's very mellow. But prior to that, I was working in elementary school. I don't remember why I started saying that though. I lost it.
You talking about buying more merch then?
Oh, so I'm always really broke because I work for public school, right? So I never buy merch. I'm like,
damn shame, and it should not be that way. Teachers should make like 80K.
Oh, it was so sad. I'd be like the head of our district. I don't remember what they call her, but she's essentially the CEO of the school district. But I hate that they word it that way in the first place. Like, our kids' education is not a corporate gig, you know.
Yeah.
But she got a bonus last year that was as much as I was making in a year. I'm like, why is this lady that's in charge making her yearly bonus is what I make in a year? That doesn't make any sense. But that's neither here nor there. It just turned out that this year I wound up having the money to spend on merch, and I was like, I want all the COVID stuff. I want it all. Give it. Like, I'm buying masks. I don't know what's wrong with me.
The mask thing is so funny to me because like almost every artist I sold merch for this year had a mask, and I'm thinking about like how many masks people are gonna have like when we don't have to wear them anymore, and like what are we gonna I feel like some people will still just like wear them sometimes, just like just to like, because it's become like a fashion statement in a way. Like, I don't know.
Hey, I'm all about it being a fashion statement. I get creeped out with the doctor mask. Like, you're buying a box of disposable doctor masks, like you know what I'm talking about, like the white one, and they're like papery, like they don't even look comfortable, you know. And I'm just like, you know, you're gonna be using masks for a long time. Why are you buying disposable boxes of them? You know what I mean? And throwing them away. I just can't wrap my head around that. But
I feel you.
I also am like, yeah, I get to rock my favorite band on my face now. I'm down.
Yeah, my friend who worked the second night of the Chicago Umphrey shows like showed up. She's an amazing, talented seamstress, another like wonderful female. Her name's Maureen, and she brought like 5 different like custom handmade Umphrey's masks that were all like different and with like these really cool fabrics and like cool like translucent really tiny beads like woven into them, and like she just straight up gave them away to our crew. She was like, you know, I'm so thankful to be here, and like thanks for having me to come work, and I just thought I'd bring these. And I was like, you're so dope. So I have an Umphrey's mask now too.
Aw, nice. That's rad. I'm collecting. I'm a nerd like that though. I have a Cycles one and an Umphrey's one. No, a couple of Umphrey's ones, I think. I don't know. I feel like they keep like popping up now. I'm like, when did I even buy that one? But I had to buy the like drive-in hoodies too. I don't know. I don't ever buy hoodies from Umphrey's because they're always really like $60 is more than I want to spend on a hoodie, really. But
yeah, I feel ya. I feel ya.
This year I felt like it was necessary, so bought them both.
Good for you.
And I got a Garrett license plate. I was pretty stoked on that. That was cool that it was at the drive, like the Speedway. It just felt very like it felt right up their alley. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, they did a cool merch run for those too. Like it was like just enough like Speedway oriented design without being too NASCAR.
Yeah.
Like it was like, you know, because there's a line where it's like, you know, but some of the other artists that did drive-in shows, like not the Atlanta ones, but just drive-in shows in general, like just went way overboard with like the checkered flags and like race cars and shit. And I'm like, okay guys, like I get it, but like come on. But Umphrey's kept it classy. Like I thought their designs were still really cool despite
their little car, the NASCAR car that they had on the back of the one sweatshirt, and like all the little
like the flowers and stuff.
Yeah, like
it was like a cycle
and everything, but it was all like Umphrey's shit, you know. I love that. And I had to point out to my friends, because a lot of people don't know, I don't know sign language, but I know some signs, and he's not doing the rock hand out of the window in the car. He's not doing rock hands, he's doing I love you. Which
really?
Yeah. I was like, I love that. And they're like, maybe it's just fucked up. Maybe it's supposed to be a rock hand and they just fucked up. I'm like, no, they love us.
That's such an interesting observation. And like, I can't tell you how many of those hoodies I counted and or like just looked at, and I did not notice that.
Yeah, the hand sticking out the top. And you would think, I mean, and it's very close, right? It's very similar.
Yeah.
So it's
very similar,
but only because I know that is what I love you is. I'm like, that is not a rock hand. But
I'm gonna follow up with their merch manager on that, who became a good friend of mine through like the 4 shows we worked together, and I'm gonna chase down an answer for you on that.
Sam? Is Sam their merch?
Yeah.
He's awesome. I have only met him a time or two, and I'm certain he doesn't know me. Although he does follow me on Instagram, so maybe. But
don't tell yourself for it.
I just love that he has all the pictures of him and his kids on Instagram, but also he sang at
I know
Jake thing, and I was like, oh my god, I love it. It was so awesome.
Come to think of it, now that you remind me, he was supposed to send me a video of that, and he never did. So I'm gonna, as soon as we're off this call, text him and be like, yo, 2 things. Number 1, what's up with the I love you sign? Number 2, where the fuck is that video of you singing? Because I'm gonna see that.
Yeah,
I heard it was epic.
Yeah, it was great. And honestly, that's funny because I was skiing this weekend, and in the parking lot someone was playing the song that he sang, and I don't know that song, right? I just know Sam sang it, so I remember how it sounded, you know, at an Umphrey show. But so in the parking lot, and I'm sitting there like, okay, who is this? Is this Arlo McKinley? No, it's not Arlo. Who is it? And I was like, oh, it's that song Sam sang at the drive-in. It made me so happy. I love that shit. And then they brought out the broom from Why Not? Oh man, they kill me. It was weird because I thought I was gonna die at the drive-in, and then it turned out that my uncle, like my second father, passed away while I was flying back home.
Oh my God.
And it was just such a weird, like the whole thing is weird, right? Because like he is a huge reason I love the music that I love and everything. He's like a big Pink Floyd guy and got me into like Primus and shit, and the whole weekend I was just like, this reminds me of like childhood, because I used to go to races with my dad and this uncle, right? And I like thought of him a lot that weekend, and I also thought I was going to die. I even called my husband to be like, I love you guys, I don't know what's gonna happen. We really might die right now. But then it turned out, like, I found out he was going to the hospital when I was getting on the plane, and then when I landed, I found out he had passed away. But that's also the only reason I got to go to that show that Sam played, was because I had to go back to Chicago for his funeral, and it happened to be that same weekend. So it was just like a
Wow.
shit ton of synchronicity, you know, in one week.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, no one wants to lose one of their favorite people, but, you know, he spoke to me a lot within that week. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
we
Wow.
were resonate. Yeah, it was, so that will
Honestly,
always be a special, you know,
yeah.
week to me.
If you don't mind, I would love to share that story with Sam because I think it would make, like, I don't know, I think it would mean something to him to
Please
hear
do.
that, especially because
Please do.
obviously his little cameo obviously meant a lot to you. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like it's like, you know, spreading those moments is important, you know. And
Absolutely. And I've never seen them do something like that, you know, like
yeah,
they always have guests, but they don't bring their crew up, you know what
yeah.
I mean? Like it was just so cool. I was like really
Like everyone's just so like so enthralled to be having shows again that like people were like down to get a little goofy this time, you know, like
absolutely.
we're just
Absolutely.
kidding. We're like happy to be here.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
do
really
whatever you're gonna do. That's what I screamed after, like, so I'm screaming. I'm certain in the recording you can hear me yelling. So I was just like so pumped Sam was singing. And then they brought out Bayless's neighbor, who on Why Not plays the broom. Like he drags the broom across the box. But he also
nice.
plays the harmonica. So the first song they had him on for, he was playing the harmonica, I believe. And then I like in the middle of their banter, I was like, bring out the broom, and then he brought out the broom like immediately. I was like, fuck yeah, like it was just so good.
I'm so thrilled that you were able to have all of those shows. That's really awesome. You know, obviously it's extremely sad and unfortunate that, you know, you lost a close person to you, but I personally really believe in synchronicities as well, and the fact that it was, you know, like you found out basically, you know, right after leaving, maybe not right after leaving, but you know, after having this incredible experience with your favorite band, and then lo and behold, two of them are playing another show in Chicagoland, which like was rare because the full band had just done shows.
Right.
So like, you know, they wouldn't have played anymore if it wasn't just like, you know, the Brendan and Jake thing. So
Yeah,
that's really,
exactly.
really cool that you got to do
Exactly.
that while in town.
I'm like, he had a part in that somehow, even if he doesn't know, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because that is genuinely, I live in Colorado, you know, and I don't travel for show. Like I travel to Chicago, like I'll travel to Illinois because I'm from Indiana, right? So like I have children. So my mom will meet me in Illinois for summer camp, and she'll take my, so now I have a 9-month-old and a 12-year-old, but it was always just the 12-year-old, you know, for a very long time. So she would come pick him up and he would stay with her, and I would just be able to have my time for the
Uh-huh.
weekend or whatever. But other than that, I don't ever travel. Like I always wished I could be that person that was traveling for shows, you know what I mean? Like if only.
Yeah.
But I was never that person. And then Tara, she's a photographer. She's shot summer camp a lot. She's an Umphrey's photographer, one of my best friends, but she happened to get a car for Georgia and was like, let's go. And she like booked my flight, and I just had to pay her the money. I was like, okay, if it works out, it works out. And, you know, sure. You know, I'm just like letting the universe do its thing at this point. Like, I really want to go, but I don't know. I have a new baby.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
just happened to work out that I could go, which was incredible in and of itself. And then being there around all the racing stuff and like really feeling like my uncle and dad, like having, and I like forget my memories, right, from childhood. Like I don't have very vivid memories of anything, but they started coming back, you know. I was like, oh shit, I used to go to races with those guys. I
Oh,
forgot,
that's cool.
you know. And so I don't know, it's just, you know, Umphrey's doing that thing that they always do to me, where they they like the universe speaks to me through them somehow, and I'm a big nerd. I'm okay with it.
Honestly, that's how I felt too. It's cool that you had that experience with like these drive-in shows because I mentioned before, Trampled by Turtles is like one of my most favorite bands and has been for like 8 years now.
Mhm.
I really, really love their music. Their songwriting means so much to me, and I've seen them a million times. And this was my first time working with them, and like being able to work with one of your favorite bands for the first time, like in the middle of, you know, a year where the industry's just come to a screeching halt, and like most artists aren't able to tour or play. Um, and like to have that experience and to have a really positive experience too, you know, was just like so incredible. And like they played so many songs, they like I said, I've seen them a million times, and they played so many old songs that they never play. It was like they knew that they were playing for like the super fans that night. It wasn't like a kind of like superficial festival set where like people might show up because they like them and they might just walk past and show up. Like it was like, nah, the people who are here like paid good money to come out during a pandemic and like try out this new model, which everyone's unfamiliar with, and like maybe they'll like it, maybe they won't. Like literally took a pretty big gamble on like a pretty expensive ticket. And also the show is like an hour north of Chicago, so probably kind of far for some people.
Yeah.
um yeah, and like I felt like their set lists really reflected like that knowledge of these folks love our band.
Yeah.
And it was so fucking cool to just be there and like soak it in, and you know, like also be like selling their merch and making them money on
Right.
top of, you know, being at the show also. Like it was
Yeah.
just such an incredible feeling that I was not expecting to happen to me this year. So
Right. That's so cool. And it's like you said, synchronicity. It really is a, you know, I don't know. People, I think it's pretty woo woo sometimes, but I think it's totally, I don't know. It speaks to me all the time. And just like, you know, a band knowing exactly what you need to hear at that. How do they, you know what I mean? How do they know
right.
really what we want, but they get it right, and they get it so right that it like changes your life. And people are like, you know, you went to see this band how many times? Why? You know, like it just doesn't register the same way for everyone. And that's interesting to me too, just like the diversity and how impactful it can be for some people versus just like meh for
Yeah,
other
right.
people, you know. It's
Right. Yeah.
crazy.
It's interesting that you say this, because so I'm really interested in synchronicity as well, and I'm also someone that picks up on it in my daily life all the time. Like anybody who, like any of my close friends or just people that I talk to on a regular basis could tell you, like I'm always touting off about like synchronicities and whatever different things that happen in my life, and just like searching for a deeper meaning. And honestly, like, you know, people, you can take it for what it's worth, but I personally think that it brings me like a greater pleasure in life, and just like to have that connection, and to like search for that connection, and to bring meaning to maybe what some people might consider to be like insignificant things.
Yeah.
And it really just, the way that I always describe it whenever I have like a moment of synchronicity like that is, it just makes me feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be at that time.
Yeah.
And in a year, especially in a year like this year, not to mention like just the past several years of my life have been pretty freaking tumultuous. Like I'm not gonna lie. I know, like, you know, that might just sound like cliche, but I've definitely had a lot of ups and downs in a lot of different aspects of my life in the past few years. But um it's just such a comfort to like have that feeling of like, okay, well, this really does feel like where I belong at this moment. And it doesn't mean that everything is comfortable, and it doesn't mean that everything is certain. In fact, it could be the complete opposite, but at least in this moment right now, it's almost like a sign from the universe, like keep going,
Yeah.
because like you're on your path, you know, and that's really all you can be, is on your path.
Yeah.
And just staying present and trusting the process. That's some of the best advice I've ever been given, is to trust the process. That
Hmm.
came from one of my mentors from Silver Rapper. And like when I was just kind of trying to find my footing in the industry, and second guessing myself a lot, and honestly dealing with a lot of intimidating men, and just realizing like, no, like I just have to keep going and believe in myself, and do what I do. And you know, I really draw upon those moments of synchronicity to like act as motivation and inspiration, and they do.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for that, and I think it's an awesome tool to use. So
I agree. I don't care. I don't care what other people think about it. I'm like, that was synchronistic as fuck. Did you see that? You're like, what? I'm like, ah.
I mean, us meeting at that Umphrey show, like unofficially meeting and like
Yeah.
not knowing it, that's pretty
huge. That's huge to me. I mean, it sounds silly. I don't think it sounds silly, but
No,
I how
it's
other
super cool.
people.
It's super cool because you probably reached out to me like only a few weeks after that, because you first reached out to me like probably almost a month and a half or 2 months ago now. So
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like I was on top of shit up till like mid-October, and then all of a sudden it was like Halloween, and then it was this.
Oh yeah, November was a weird month.
In November was very strange. I feel like for all my friends, is like everyone was like to themselves for like 3 weeks, you know, like not even.
Well, first of all, daylight savings time happened and it fucked everybody up. Fucked me up. Also, like my last drive-in show was on November 1st, and so like I had 2 months of extreme, like I was already doing all this stuff that I do, you know, because there's still some stuff to be done at Metro, even though we're not promoting shows. So I'm still like working with them. And then, you know, I had all this PR stuff that's popped up in the meantime, and a few other like freelance avenues here and there. And then these shows, which were like, oh, like really keeping me busy and honestly giving me like this sense of accomplishment and community and just being at shows, you know, like everything just felt so good. And then literally like the same weekend that we had our last show, or I think it was daylight savings time was like the weekend after Thanksgiving, or sorry, Halloween this year, I think. So
Yeah.
I think, or maybe it was the weekend of Halloween. I can't remember, but no, I think it was the weekend of Halloween, because I remember thinking like I had an extra night of sleep, or an extra hour of sleep, like the night before the last show.
Yeah.
So like we went in and did our last show, and then like it was over, and it's just over until like who knows when, like TBD. And then it was darker an hour earlier, and it was already so dark so early, and it just got cold, and it was just like so depressing for a few weeks there, like trying to like just adjust to that. And yeah, November was definitely a weird month. So
yeah, like, it felt like everyone, myself included, was kind of in a little mini funk, you know, which is fine. I think we all need those quiet times too, you know. No matter how extroverted you are, it's good to like just sit for a while.
Yeah, cocoon.
Well, and that's kind of what, it's funny you say cocoon. Speaking of synchronicity and how like,
yes, hit me with it.
Like it's tumultuous, but you have to trust in the process, because like, you know, I always think of the butterfly and how it basically turns into soup in a chrysalis, you know, like it totally breaks down, turns into a soup, and then becomes a butterfly somehow. Like that is a fucked up process. I think that's a Joe Rogan shtick, actually. Like, you think that caterpillar is happy when it starts breaking down into goo? Like, what the fuck is happening? Like, you gotta trust the process, because eventually you come out flying and beautiful.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Shit. I say shit because I think I hear my baby crying, and
oh no,
dad probably has to go to bed. I'm like, I don't know what time it is. Yeah, it's 9:00. Shoot. Okay. But we should pick this up some other time, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. No, this was great. This is like a really fun, I love that your format's just like, let's just shoot the shit, because I had a feeling you and I were going to have a lot in common, and it turns out that we have, and clearly like we see the world in the same way in a lot of respects. And I really love connecting with people who share my ideals in that way. And I love that you're doing like a female focused podcast, because fuck yeah. And obviously women have had such an impact on me and like my growth and personal development, both in my career and otherwise. And so like I'm all about that, and I'm really looking forward to like seeing what other awesome things that we get to do together, because I feel like there are going to be some down the road.
For sure. For sure. This is just the happy, like, this wasn't even the beginning, really, because the beginning happened a month and a half.
I know, right? We didn't even know that.
Yeah, exactly. So for sure, good things are to come. But
yes,
thank you so much for being with me, and we will see you hopefully soon. And this episode will be up in January, so I'll let you know.
Awesome.
And like tag save our stages and all that stuff too. So
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to like legitimately meet you and talk, and I'm looking forward to the next time.
Yes. Okay. Bye.
Bye.